Banks are hesitant because they're often, they look at their resume, they see gaps in their resume. 90% of those that did, of our membership that did attempt to get funding were turned down.
When I was transitioning out of the military, one of the things that during the TAP program they said is talk to all your bosses, to ask them to be a reference to help you find a job, especially the ones that liked you.
Just say to your son, father knows best. Remember that, right?
Oh, I know that.
Veteran businesses, if we had more access to capital and the ability to fund, and it doesn't have to be an insurmountable amount of money, but right now we help veterans, buy homes. Could we help them subsidize a business venture?
Recent SBA report indicated that millennial veterans are less likely to start new businesses than non-millennial veterans.
So I want to introduce our witnesses. The first witness here today is Mr. Bill Belknap. Mr. Belknap is the president of AEONRG, LLC, located in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Our next witness here with us today is my constituent, Mr. Stephen Hayduk. Mr. Hayduk is the founder and owner of Hayduk Engineering, LLC, located on Long Island in Ronkonkoma, New York.
I'd like to introduce Ms. Stephanie Brown, who I've known for quite a period of time, for a long time, she says. She happens to be the widow of one of my dear friends, Admiral Tom Brown, who I served with and for on multiple continents and multiple combat tours, and he's a fine man. And I thank you so much, Stephanie, for your service and sacrifice to our country. Stephanie is the founder and chairwoman and CEO of the Rosie Network, which is a group that has been established to help alleviate some of the economic hardships that military folks have.
Delighted to introduce our final witness, John Tellier. Mr. Tellier is a constituent of my district in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. His company, JetCo Solutions, is based in Grand Rapids. It assists other companies in entering the federal marketplace to bid on government contracts.
Ms. Brown, your efforts to help military spouses are very important. And can you briefly discuss some of the major challenges military spouses face as small business owners?
Thank you for that question. As I mentioned, access to capital is, of course, a big challenge, like it is for veteran-owned. Banks are hesitant because they're often, they look at their resume, they see gaps in their resume. 90% of those that did, of our membership that did attempt to get funding were turned down. So they see a nomadic lifestyle, access to capital. Also, when it comes to, we find that over 70% of our military spouse members want to do business with the government. So getting access to capital, getting access to some of the training and resources that are available to veterans, by designating, giving military spouses that designation of a economically disadvantaged category will open that up to them.
Can you describe the work you do in helping other veterans navigate small business ownership? And what advice would you have for service members who are considering taking the leap of faith and start their own small business as they embark on their next chapter?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman Williams. So there's a couple of thoughts about that. Number one is the veterans got to decide what type of business they want to offer, and that comes with what are their experiences, what are the skills they have to offer the customer, in this case the federal government. Number two, what is the passion they have to wake up every morning that are excited to do their business. Once they have those two, of course they need to come up with a business plan, and the enormity of opportunities for vetting that business plan for assistance needs to be more informed to veterans. And number three, I would suggest that the mentorship program that I talked about can have an enormous impact. You know, when I was transitioning out of the military, one of the things that during the TAP program they said is talk to all your bosses, to ask them to be a reference to help you find a job, especially the ones that liked you.
Do you think we should look at expanding the surviving spouse designation to include the children of veterans as well?
Yes, I think that would be extremely beneficial, and that is actually one of the 4 points that I made, the transition process. My son sitting behind me is a licensed professional engineer. In a consulting engineering practice, It's a professional practice. Only another licensed professional engineer can take over or be an owner, a principal. But although we have built it up to 50 people, and he is a partner in the business, a short time after my demise, the business will cease to exist if he doesn't find a different person to take over as SDVOB owner.
Well, that's good. And I would just say to your son, father knows best. Remember that, right?
Oh, I know that.
What are the most common barriers that you see with small businesses who are seeking a government contract?
There's really no playbook in terms of what you should do, where you should start, and who you should talk to. And it can be as simple as a SAM.gov registration and getting your cage and your UAI to inputting a SPURS score into PIEE, into determining which agencies and departments are actually buying products and services that you have to offer. And then you're asked to write a multi-volume proposal to respond to an RFP or a solicitation. And there's, unless you hire somebody to specifically do that, you're relying on your own skills. So it's in my mind, it's almost like trying to eat an elephant and trying to figure out where to start. And there's multiple access points, but I think that the enormity of the information is definitely a barrier to small business owners.
And specifically, do you feel that veteran-owned small businesses face those same challenges to a greater or lesser degree, or about the same? Veteran-owned small.
I think that veteran businesses have the same challenges as small business owners. I would like to potentially see, and there's been lots of testimony about the different set-asides and small business goals and diverse goals. But really, I think veteran businesses, if we had more access to capital and the ability to fund, and it doesn't have to be an insurmountable amount of money, but right now we help veterans buy homes. Could we help them subsidize a business venture? And then talent and finding people and getting them to participate in your business.
I'm wondering if you could share, a few stories to help us for the record here as we continue to look for ways to support heroes like you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for that question. I can certainly share my own personal story, but I have many others. I was a small business owner here in Washington, D.C. On that fateful day that I met what would become my husband a year later. He received orders overseas to take command, and I had to exit my business. So I exited my business at a loss, and then moved overseas and found myself unemployed and unemployable. I can tell you that while I proudly served alongside and supported my husband's service to the nation, you can't help but have it impact your marriage when you are, trying to find a job and you can't find one, and you have no place or purpose, and money is tight, and then kids come along. So I do think it impacts marriage, and we know statistically that it impacts retention and recruitment.
You sat here and it's amazing that you're praising the acumen of the government of the state of New York and their ability to make sure that veterans are employed in comparison to the federal government, which is, without using vulgarity, I don't know how to describe the federal government's process at this point. So I just want to ask you some stuff. Ranking Member Levin and I were responsible for the Transition Assistance Program. And that's how I've chosen to try to prevent veteran suicide, taking people that are productive members of the military and then immediately transitioning them to productive members of society writ large as civilians. I think it's that 24-month window where our men and women decide to take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And so I really want to know, I'm going to ask all three of you this, how do you think that Mike and I can change the transition assistance program using your subject matter expertise? Because we don't have to ask the DOD, we can tell them. What could we possibly do if you could just have a couple suggestions that Mike and I can take back to our subcommittee and put that into the TAP program so that we can help our veterans become productive members of society? And I'd like to write these down, if that's okay. Mr. Belknap?
Sure. Thank you, Congressman, for this opportunity. Yep. Thank you, Congressman, for this opportunity. A couple of thoughts. Number one is transition program that you helped founded is amazing and incredible service to our departing veterans from the service and transitioning into the commercial world. I talked about mentorship and how that helped me find a job, a corporate job after I exited. I would suggest that a similar way can happen with encouraging veterans to become entrepreneurs after they leave as well. And what that takes is a couple things. It takes, number one, their realization that it's another way to serve their country for all the right reasons. We need a strong industrial base, and they're contributing to our security in another manner.
Sir, I do not mean to,
sure,
to cut you short, but the coach there is going to whack me with that gavel if we don't hit it. So I got small business mentorship. Do you have another one?
Sorry.
That's all right. Do you have another suggestion?
Yes. So the mentorship is huge, and letting and informing, encouraging veterans that there's another way to serve their country.
Very well. Thank you.
That's huge.
Mr. Hayduk? Do you have any specific recommendations for Ranking Member Levin and I to bring into the TAP program?
With respect to transition you're talking about.
That is correct, sir.
I really don't know what the answer to that is. One of the things I discussed with Mr. Lalota's staff when they called, and I spoke with them, it's a vexing problem, especially in the case of a professional practice. But I do think that there should be some consideration of being allowed to keep the designation of SDVOB going for a significant period of time that could allow the firm to continue to exist, both to members of the family and or to others that you may have started to transition it to.
Sir, thank you very much. I'd like to give Ms. Brown a minute. Ma'am.
Thank you for that question. Yes, I absolutely. So what you refer to, Derek, is a sense of purpose. I sort of feel like that is what we do, is we're helping people find their sense of purpose after service. First of all, I've been to TAPS. They do offer an optional session on entrepreneurship. In my experience, whether it's good or not totally depends on who's teaching it. I've literally been in one, ended up stepping up and teaching the class myself because the person that was assigned to teach it had never started a business and didn't really know what they were talking about. They were regurgitating government programs that were available. Well, that's great and all well and good, but when you're boots on the ground and you got to make payroll, you need real world answers and solutions. So my suggestion is engage. The government needs to engage with organizations that are doing the work on the ground, right? There needs to be more of that collaboration. We're cut off. The SBA just launched Pathways to Business for Military Spouses. And I mean, I'm nothing against my SBA partners, but they are, it is not well attended, and it's not. So why would they do that? The last thing really quick, the GI Bill, okay? Not all veterans and their family members want to go to college. Right? Please start the conversation. Over 80% of our business owners right now, veteran-owned, are over 70 years old.
Ms. Brown, my time has expired.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Recent SBA report indicated that millennial veterans are less likely to start new businesses than non-millennial veterans. what do you think we need to do to ensure that younger veterans are starting small businesses?
Another great question. So millennial spouses are more likely to start a business than millennial veterans, okay? So I would argue, again, it's a family affair, as you described. Engage with those spouses. Military spouses, whether veteran or active duty, make, we all know, the majority of financial decisions, housing decisions, school decisions for military families. We are coming in the ninth inning when it comes to engaging military spouses. And again, the way to do that is not to create yet another government program necessarily, but really engage and get advice from those of us that have been doing it for almost 13 years. I think that's a huge part of it. And the younger ones are, they have a lot of advantages that the older folks like me in my 60s didn't. We didn't have access to the internet or e-com and all that kind of stuff. That's really what they're gravitating toward. So build the TAP program and that training program to be meaningful to them, right? To meet them where they are.
So the VA is so dysfunctional that veteran suicide is increasing, although we've given them $120 billion since 9/11. So they recognize their dysfunction, and they started something called the Staff Sergeant Fox Grant Program, where we give the VA money, and then they find organizations that are functional, and they give the money that we give them to the organizations that are actually doing the work. And although I do not encourage this, I would not like to be an enabler. I'm wondering if the small business, the SBA, were to have a program like that was specifically designed to cater directly to veteran-owned businesses as a clearinghouse to kind of skip all the rest of this noise and the static that we hear. Do you think that that would be beneficial to you guys? I'll start with you, Mr. Belknap.
I can see some benefits to doing that, certainly. I think that a lot of this is awareness. Veterans have to make veterans aware of the programs that are out there. There are enormous amounts of opportunities. SBA, SBDC, VOBC, et cetera. So they need some awareness to it, and they also need some more awareness to some of the civilian organizations that offer free counseling and facilitation of veterans to start businesses, like NSBA, like National Veteran Small Business Coalition. I'm on the board of both of them. If somebody asked me for a scholarship to join an organization, as a board member, I wouldn't hesitate to help them. And I know others feel the same way.
Mr. Hayduk?
I believe that this falls right into a project that we have a proposal into the VA right now for privatization of the operation and maintenance of the VA wastewater treatment facilities at Northport. I was in government for a 5-year stint as the Commissioner of Public Works, as the Chairman had mentioned, and I think that there are many ways in which the private sector could do some of the work that government does better than the government does, and there's some things that we shouldn't be involved in. But I do think that there are things like that would work very well.
Mr. Tellier, if the VA adopted innovation as a fifth mission and was empowered to develop and invest in solutions with small businesses more effectively, especially service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses who know the veteran and caregiver challenges best, what would that mean for the SDVSOBs?
I think it's another opportunity for them to pursue a federal contract, especially with being technology related. And there are several programs out there right now, the Small Business Innovation and Research Grants, that could be a model that you could use to develop opportunities for SDVOBs to partner and pursue technology opportunities.
Just a follow-up question, because this traditional FAR-based acquisition, it offers helpful service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses preferences, sole source and set-aside options, but those preferences are still difficult to understand, access, and navigate. What are some of the hardships that veteran-owned small businesses face when seeking out a partnership with the federal government?
They don't necessarily understand what the requirements are, and if the requirements are well documented, in many cases they don't have the depth and breadth of providing the entire solution, and so I think it was mentioned earlier that STVOBs in many cases can't pursue very large contracts, and so maybe if we take bite-size pieces in terms of scale and deployability, that might be a better course of action.
If there's no further business, without objection, the committee is adjourned.